Okay. Hello, welcome to stuff.jpg, a podcast about images and stuff. Today, no wait, I have to introduce myself first. My name is St Clair. I am an illustrator and educator, and today I'm joined by...
Thomas O'Mahony.
Do you want to tell us about yourself?
I'm a podcast producer, podcaster, do a lot of stuff, not a whole lot, make a lot of JPEGs. Can't draw, very famously. I'm very bad at that, but I'm very good at Photoshop, so...
No one's bad at drawing.
Okay.
People just have bad attitudes
To
drawing.
You haven't seen my drawing yet.
Well, we're about to. I am going to give you a Sharpie and a Post-it note.
Yep.
Tom, will you please draw Santa Claus?
Okay. Are we doing Scandinavian Santa Claus or ethnically diverse Santa Claus?
Whichever feels the most like Santa to you.
Okay.
And don't worry, I won't judge you.
What if Santa loved Deng Xiaoping?
Can you talk and draw at the same time? Or?
Yeah, I can talk and draw at the same time. It's funny because I took up drawing relatively recently because as a therapeutic practice, because apparently it's good for your mental health to not be on your phone all the time.
What?
So yeah, I suppose for me, my context of drawing, a lot of it is to do with tattooing, which is, I suppose, my main area of interest for a lot of things, and how I understand, I suppose, a drawn visual language. I suppose over the years I've gotten better at understanding more about like art as a drawn or painted medium, whereas traditionally I would have thought of it much more in a graphic sense.
Yeah.
I'm still, like, I suppose a lot of tattoo artists, I'm still not good at drawing hands. Although I bought a very good book from the 50s, which is specifically about hands, and got the great advice of take pictures of your own hands and redraw them.
It's the classic.
My
photo booth on my iMac is full of some of the strangest images of me.
Yeah.
Sort of Bigfoot walking through my studio, just trying to get that pose down.
Yeah, and it's like, I think about drawing a lot more now because I took it up, one, kind of as a therapeutic practice, but two, kind of as, I think, a conscious effort to understand tattooing more and understand the form of it and how it's constructed.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately I can't enjoy things unless it's either work or I'm learning.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, I think there's a beautiful kind of thing to it where if you take it like very seriously, you can like develop your artistry, or you can just do like silly Rastafarian Santa like I'm doing.
So just to describe it, you've drawn a bust of I can say an older man with a beard.
Yeah, with a beard, who instead of your traditional Santa hat, he has the kind of like broccoli hair, and he's wearing a fishnet stocking on his head. It's like, who brings presents to Santa? This is kind of like the night. This is kind of like, the 23rd of December. He's like, he's trying different stuff. He's like, he hasn't reverted to his usual. It's like, oh, I gotta wear the big red suit. He's like, what if I wear Mrs. Claus fishnets on my head and wear like a low cut V-neck like pajama top?
This is Santa on laundry day.
Santa on laundry day, but it's also like, he's exploring himself. Santa is suddenly having questions about his gender. It's,
we love this.
He's like slightly. The way I think about it is that like this is the reverse image of Santa looking in the mirror on the 23rd, and he's like,
I love it.
He's trying to figure out,
it's
like,
wonderful.
Is this the year where I change it up?
Yeah.
Because I took all that money from the Coca-Cola Corporation in the 40s, and I
this
put
is
on
the
the
year
big red
Santa
suit.
goes electric.
Yeah, Santa is going electric. Yeah,
that is wonderful. All right. So in case you haven't guessed so far, today we are talking about Santa Claus because it's Christmas time.
A lot of people don't know that Santa Claus is actually based on Haile Selassie, Jah Rastafari, peace be upon him.
It's Sorry. Just imagining my tutors listening to this. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I didn't include any of the rest of backgrounds in this presentation.
A lot of people didn't know that Brad Pitt in Meet Joe Black actually was doing an interpretation of Santa when he said everything gonna be Irene.
Oh my goodness. Right. We start at the beginning. I'm showing you our first image. Feel free to zoom in.
Oh, yep. St. Nicholas illuminated illustration. It's 10th century. I would actually would have said it maybe like be a little bit earlier, just with the gilding on the frame.
You are so good at this.
Sorry, I'm doing art historian stuff.
No, I love it. Continue.
Yeah, like I have such an affinity for this type of illustration because it's like it like is in this strange period between like the start of, I suppose, the modern Christian written age, like going from 7th century in Ireland. I found out recently that Irish monks invented putting spaces between words recently.
What?
Yeah, because like before then the Romans wrote in continuous lettering, so like the sentence was just like one big word.
Yes, yeah.
And in other non-Latin based language such as like Ethiopian and Armenian, as far as I remember, they would use like glyphs as like signifiers as break between words.
Yes. But the Irish invented...
Well, the Irish monks of the 7th century systematized it. So like using it as a consistent practice in the like illuminated manuscripts, so copying of the Bible in the 7th century. But this sort of illustration is like, it's like you're moving from the early Christian era into kind of the precursor to the early medieval age, where we're starting to see the coalescing of depictions of Christ and saints. Yeah, you have like a decorated Bible, which is a very much a thing of the time, like the Bible becoming more not widely available because still a lot of people couldn't read, but like the commonality of Bibles started.
It's becoming visible. It's an item that you would recognize and see, and it probably for most people it's the only book you see. So if you see a book and a painting, you're like, that's the Bible.
And a book that exists outside of just being like a single 1 or 2 page manuscript as well, like a collective body of work. It's highly illustrated, highly decorated. Obviously these are valuable items as well, and part of the reason why monks in monasteries in Ireland, then spreading to like Lindisfarne, the north of England, and then also continue at the same time in Europe, where like a lot of these monasteries were kept open because they were making Bibles for lords and kings, and is like, you know, oh, I'll give you this money, give me a Bible. Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you a bit about this image.
Okay.
You managed to get a lot of it right. I'm genuinely like very impressed. So you are correct. It is 10th century, late 10th century. It is from a monastery. It is from St Catherine's at the foot of Mount Sinai, so in Egypt.
Yep.
Which is one of the oldest monasteries ever. Apart from probably like ones in Ethiopia.
Well, it makes sense because the illustration of the face and the hands is much more continuous with the development of Christian iconography in Africa than it would be in Europe.
Do you want to describe the representation of the man in this image?
Yeah, so this is like pre-medieval flat lay illustration where there is some form of depth to it. It is also influenced in the Ethiopian vein by Greco-Roman illustrations, but it's still a head-on portrait of St. Nicholas wearing vestments and looking very Roman with the kind of high hairline.
So the high hairline was actually a kind of a stock thing. The way these images were put together is you would kind of, it's a bit like dress up doll games.
Yeah, it's an early pick crew.
Yeah, exactly. You pick different features and different sort of symbols to get across the story or the personality of the saint. So just a little bit about St. Nicholas. He is this patron saint of many, many, many things, but was most famous for gift giving. He's probably born in the 3rd century to a wealthy Greek Christian family in Anatolia. Plague killed his parents, and then he was a rich orphan. He was sort of a Harry Potter type character. He entered the priesthood and would eventually become a bishop. Do you know what his sort of most famous story is?
No.
Excellent. Okay, it's a good one. There's 2. First one's kind of funnier with the illustration.
Yeah.
Which is... Oh, Jesus.
The iPad has locked. We're getting a peek behind the curtains now.
We have. And feel free to zoom in and stuff if you want. So, St. Nicholas's big claim to fame is saving 3 girls from being forced into sex work. The girl's father was a good but very poor man, and he couldn't afford any dowries for his daughters to marry them off. Obviously, the only alternative to being married is to go into prostitution. Yep. Standard. Nicholas heard of the plight of the 3 virgin girls, and being rich and pious and modest, he conceived of a plan to save them. So for 3 nights in a row, he snuck to the bedroom window of the destitute family, and he chucked balls of gold through the window.
It's just an odd thing to have, just balls. Like, a ball is not...
He was a literal baller.
It's not really a good medium for, like, the storage of wealth.
No, in some stories it is bags of gold, but then, like, in a lot of the illustrations of him, he's always carrying, like, these baubles. Yeah. Which some people think is where baubles on the Christmas tree comes from.
And hence why, you know, we eat Ferrero Rochers at Christmas. We are honouring the origin of St. Nicholas.
And this, what you're looking at here, is an image of said incident.
Yeah.
I quite enjoy it because the 3 girls are sort of covering their heads.
Yeah.
Sort of being like, Jesus, what is that?
I assume this is a fresco?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. It's odd because it's like, it's simultaneously like quite high medieval, but also not. Like the perspective work in it is like not very medieval. Like it is almost kind of reminiscent of like a Jan van Eyck painting. But I think it's like an incredible illustration of a story, and it's something that is a strong feature of the period, that like obviously literacy rates weren't that high, so you had to come up with a very succinct way of visual storytelling.
You have to tell the whole story in one frame, and that usually involves kind of odd sort of juxtaposition of like kind of positioning and stuff. Like there's a girl who's like, to show that she's dutiful, she's putting on her dad's tights on his legs, not on his head. Okay, we'll look at the second story. I love this painting so much.
Yep.
So most of Saint Nick's miracles involve triplicates because of obviously the Holy Trinity.
Yeah.
His association with children is believed to have come from this story. The legend goes, during a terrible famine, a butcher who was struggling to stock his store lured 3 small children into his home. Your eyes just went really wide. He killed the children.
Yeah.
And placed them in a pickling barrel. He planned to cure the succulent baby meat and sell it as legs of ham.
Okay.
Priest Nicholas was visiting the region, helping to give out aid and feed the hungry. Being a good fellow, he instantly saw through the butcher's eyes, and he found the baby barrel in his house using his sort of holy 6th sense.
Yeah.
He came across the barrel, he did the sign of the cross, and the ham babies rose from the brine.
They all have tonsures for some reason.
What's a tonsure?
It's the shaved crown of the head.
I was sort of debating this yesterday of like if that was because they didn't have, there was like, medieval babies look like middle-aged men.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if it's just like male pattern baldness.
I maybe,
but it's probably more to do with kind of the holiness.
Yeah,
and
the piety.
Yeah.
And also as well, like a fantastic Jean Bourdechon painting. It's like you're getting into Renaissance period, high use of high contrast colours, partially due to increased trade with the Silk Road again, and like the more availability of pigments and the development of like newer, richer pigments and newer, richer like suspensions for powdered pigments.
So, mentioned earlier about the kind of the receding temples of St. Nicholas, and that was kind of to signify wisdom. And one of the things that I found really interesting about looking at these saints' icons is that each saint would kind of get like one feature that people copying the icons, reproducing them to sell, would really hone in on.
And it makes it as well that like it translates into different regions as well as a kind of like a visual shorthand, because like different regions will have different distinct visual and artistic styles.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, he has like a bald spot. God, I thought this was going to be Yakub for a second. Holy shit. This is like closer to Eastern Orthodox kind of Caucasus version.
Yeah, and for some reason, St. Nicholas, butthead.
Yeah. Why do you think he wears the hat? Why does Santa wear the hat? He has a big ass forehead and a receding hairline. He's self-conscious about it. He delivers all the presents so he can go to Turkey to get the transplant, but you know, the fuel costs of the sleigh and all that sort of stuff.
We've all like met a guy who does not take the hat off.
Yeah.
Because of unfortunate things happening around the forehead area.
As someone careening towards 30 who is losing his hair, you know, the appeal is there.
Hey, time comes for us all. Excellent. Right. Okay. So we're going to talk about Father Christmas now.
Yes.
I think most people are aware that Santa Claus is a mix of St. Nicholas and some other kind of folkloric elements from Europe. In England, this character was Father Christmas.
Yeah.
In Germanic regions, you would have Yule. Some people even consider Odin to be an early version of Santa Claus. Generally, these were kind of personifications of the midwinter and are supposed to be kind of merry party makers. They host feasts, they bring gifts, they're sort of trying to get you through to the springtime because winter in Europe is miserable.
They didn't have SSRIs back then, so...
Or a sad lamp.
Yeah, why didn't St. Nicholas bring them all sad lamps? But yeah, like this is... and this is not me going to history mode, but like this is the combining of Saturnalia into Christmas and the moving of Jesus' birth from around Easter to Christmas.
So I've just shown you a new image.
Yeah.
It is a woodcut.
Very Albert Dürer.
Would you like to describe what you see?
So this is much more like Saint Nicholas, or it is a bunch of villagers with, I assume, pikes or swords are like entering like the antechamber of Father Christmas, who has like pies and bread and various different like containers laid out in front of him, and he's like, he has his hand raised in the traditional depiction of saints and Christ, of like the raising of the left hand as a symbol, both simultaneously of judgment and forgiveness. So Father Christmas is forgiving the villagers of their sin of judgment.
There's also a sense of kind of a surrender as well. He's literally got an angry mob at his door.
And this is actually like, it's interesting because like this is, you can see the very kind of slow adaptation of the kind of Christian tenets of both Christ as Christmas, as the birth of Christ has moved to Christmas, and Father Christmas, and these kind of mingling things like the judgment of being good or bad, but also the forgiveness of sins. So,
just a little bit about this image. So, tell me when it gets to the almost there. So it's a frontispiece. But it's very difficult to say with a lisp. It's a front illustration, a cover illustration for a pamphlet, The Examination and Trial of Father Christmas by Josiah King. It was originally published in 1658. This is a reproduction from 1687. It's part of that kind of era of what we call the pamphlet wars. Where
they were posting.
Yeah, people were posting. My God, they were posting for about 200 years. It was just back and forth.
They still are. It's just called Protestantism.
Funny you should mention that. So So according to the Oxford Dictionary, this is actually the earliest citation for the phrase Father Christmas.
Okay.
As in the two words together.
Yeah.
Previously, he would just be called like Old Man Christmas.
Yeah.
Christmas, Mr. Christmas.
Yeah.
Captain Christmas, I saw, which is amazing.
We need to replace Captain Tom with Captain Christmas. Captain Christmas didn't build an illegal spa without
I just had like an image of like Captain Tom in a Christmas hat walking into heaven with Paddington.
Well, Father Christmas is just like walking up and down his front yard.
Oh God. The little like the walker becomes his sleigh.
Yep.
Oh Jesus. Right. Okay. So between the years of 1645 and 1660, parliamentarians outlawed Christmas.
Okay.
Christmas is banned.
Mm-hmm.
Puritans believed the custom was a sinful extravagance. And in the story, in this pamphlet, Father Christmas is an old man literally on trial for his life. They are going to kill Father Christmas.
The war on Christmas has always been going.
Mm-hmm. So these pamphlets, as we said before, were a form of public debate. It's basically like subtweeting for royalists and parliamentarians.
They're posting on their close friends' story.
Yeah.
We're cancelling Father Christmas.
It's like the original sort of marketplace of ideas of like people in town squares like handing out leaflets to people. It's like Fringe Festival, but I was going to say worse.
Maybe better. But,
Maybe.
you know, this is true that cancel culture isn't real because Father Christmas has been cancelled so many times. And, you know, we've done the call out posts.
Mm-hmm.
We have done Father Christmas is over party hashtag on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. And he's still around. He still comes around every year.
So this pamphlet in particular was it was a form of public debate. It kind of, in great detail, goes into the like pros and cons of Christmas time.
Yeah.
And in the end, the jury goes away and Father Christmas is found innocent of all charges and he is set free.
Yeah.
And we are allowed to celebrate Christmas again. So obviously this is from what year is this from? It's from 1658. So it's like very end of the Christmas ban. Thank you. We then move to a second pamphlet.
Yep.
This is an earlier similar pamphlet. Oops, sorry. Let me try that again.
Yeah, it's this pamphlet is like, it's very interesting because like this is the precursor to like the Dürer kind of extremely detailed woodcut. Like it's more simplistic. It's done by not necessarily someone who isn't an artisan, but it's done by someone more so like more quickly for production reasons rather than...
It's cheaper.
Yeah.
You know, and you'll be working with cheaper wood, cheaper materials, so you can't get the kind of that level of detail and craftsmanship.
It's the difference between hiring a graphic designer and getting someone on Fiverr to do it.
Yeah, or swapping a logo design for a podcast editing.
Yeah, there you go.
So this pamphlet was published in 1646, so just after the banning of Christmas, and it was called The Arraignment, Conviction and Prisoning of Christmas. Would you like to describe what you see in the little cartoon?
Yeah, so it's someone saying to Father Christmas, essentially, keep out, you're not welcome here. And he's like, but sir, I bring good cheer. And then there's a guy with a bindle who's like, old Christmas, welcome, do not here. So it's like they're saying that like Christmas isn't welcome here. We've become super Protestant. Christmas, iconography, having fun is just like, it's not on the table anymore.
Yep. And poor Santa Christmas. Poor Santa Claus in the middle. Again, these are kind of like the more pagan representations of Santa Claus.
Yeah.
It's Old Man Winter. It's long robes. He's still got the beard. He still looks kind of old and wise.
Because like part of the development of those images of it's not animist isn't the correct term. I'm sure someone will correct me on it, but it is the anthropomorphization of both time and nature, in that winter is viewed in the traditional conceptions of time as like the elderly part of the year.
Yes.
It's like the waning and the aging out of the year. Crops are dying or you can't grow crops.
And then you get to the rebirth at the New Year's festival
Yeah.
with Janus, who's a old man and baby at the same time.
Yeah, and also it is the idea that winter brings wisdom through hardship. It was a very medieval idea. Winter brings wisdom through hardship in the same way that the elderly pass down wisdom to younger people through the hardships of their life.
Yeah. There's some fun sort of visual effects used in the cartoon. There's a phylactery, which is sort of the early version of a speech bubble.
Yep.
And I only learned this yesterday, so someone may correct me on it. But there are some theories that it comes from Jewish morning prayer.
Mm-hmm.
So having the scroll kind of on your head and the speech being kind of like representative of that.
Yeah.
Super interesting to me. Right. The story from this pamphlet. Oh, firstly, did you notice the author's name? It's very blurry, so you might not be able to read. But the author of this pamphlet is Mr. Simon Minced Pie.
What? Oh, we're doing some Flann O'Brien stuff right now. Interesting.
Mr. Simon Minced Pie, and I think he's from something like Pheasant Plum Lane or something. It says on there. But the story in this pamphlet I much prefer to the other one, which is a bit sort of like, I don't know, really dry courtroom stuff, and it has like a very predictable ending. But I love this fable. So Father Christmas comes into town. He is described as a fat and jolly man wearing a rich gold and silver coat. He's covered in furs. He has holly leaves in his hair. Yeah. He is imprisoned by the Puritans and kept in prison for so long that he becomes so thin and he loses all his clothes that he can squeeze through the jail bars and escape into the town.
Why they gotta put Santa on Ozempic?
And despite being, thin and wasted away and losing all of his shine and his guild, the village people still recognize Santa Claus, or Father Christmas, I should say. They still recognize him and they tell him not to worry because they can't ban Christmas forever.
Yes, the enduring spirit of Christmas.
So, we've talked about OG Santa.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about English Santa. And I do want to talk about American Santa. Okay. Because I think that's like the archetypal Santa Claus.
Yeah.
But to do that, we must first travel to the lowlands.
Oh, God, it's the Dutch. Oh, please don't let Santa be in blackface. Oh, no. Oh, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about Zwarte-Piet.
Yes, we are. What do you see in this image? Sorry, I can be discussed to you.
Oh, God. Santa is on a coal-powered ship, still wearing the bishop's hat and with the crook, is regaling or hailing, I suppose, the people on the dock, and is accompanied by Zwarte-Piet, who is fully in blackface.
Yeah. Although I think actually Zwarte-Piet is black. So is it blackface? It's a it's a very racist representation of a black person. We'll talk about it.
I thought we were going to get weird with it. I want to see like Indonesian Santa.
We could do actually, but maybe next Christmas.
Yeah. I want to see Santa speaking Tagalog.
Oh, I would love that.
Christmas dinner that consists of turkey, rice, and a fried egg.
I mean, incredible. I'm half Burmese, so our Christmas dinner is half English Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
And half curry dal. Curries always has to be egg curry and meatball curry. Dal, cabbage fry. Cabbage fry with cranberries in it absolutely slaps.
Ooh, nice.
So these are illustrations from St. Nicholas and his servant. Heavy sigh.
Yes. As someone who has made lots of jokes on other podcasts about the Dutch and their affinity for racism. Yeah.
This is a children's picture book written by Jan Schenkman in 1850. This book is the origin of a bunch of Dutch traditions around Santa Claus, including his servant Zwarte-Piet. Yay! It's a very classic morality tale for children. Be good or Santa Claus will punish you. The story is
Be good or Santa will make you black.
I know that was a joke, but
That's literally it.
You've got a gift of foresight, or also just know too much about the Dutch.
Unfortunately.
The story is a series of short poems, each with an illustration, lithographs, so sort of these nice pencil sketches with like washes of colour on them. I actually think the quality of some of the illustrations is not. I don't know.
It's very of its time. Quite recently, I think maybe 2 months ago, I picked up 3 volumes of Punch cartoons, and one of them is 100 Years of Punch from the very start.
Oh, wonderful.
There's so much racist stuff in it.
Oh, yeah.
There's an entire chapter that's just called Bigara. That's all the anti-Irish cartoons. But yeah, like this sort of because at this time printing you were now able to print in multicolors, cheap pamphlets and like cheap books with multicolor printing that were kind of like morality tales or stories or poetry had become quite popular, especially a lot of them were written in vernacular languages, and because they were cheap to produce, people were producing them in local areas with local speech. So you don't have to know German or French. You can speak the mongrel tongue of the lowlands. We should have never built those dams and let the swamp Germans in. But yeah, like this sort of thing, and especially you'll see it as you progress from the 19th century into the 20th with the transition from kind of those sort of illustrations into stuff like French salon paintings and like the development of, I suppose, like a consistent international graphic style in the 1920s. More racist stuff now.
Yeah. So in the book, St. Nicholas arrives in the Netherlands on a steamboat from Spain.
The perfidious Spaniard.
The steamboat was chosen as it was kind of like the fun new transport option.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I don't know, Santa arriving on a bendy bus in 2008. Like, this is new and novel.
Santa's on the Flixbus. He's been on it for 14 hours. He's only going 2 miles.
So previously, Santa Claus was a mythical character in the same vein as Father Christmas.
Yeah.
Shankman made the decision to change him into a friendly bishop.
Yep.
More like the original St. Nicholas. So Santa Claus is the carrot of this carrot and stick metaphor. Santa Claus hands out sweets and toys to good children.
Yeah.
And the stick is Zwarte Piet.
Yes. Santa, if you are bad, Santa will make you black.
Aye. So in the first versions of the stories, he was just, he didn't have a name.
Yeah.
He was just a servant who appeared in...
Servant is a very generous word here.
It's a literal translation. I'm choosing not to edit. Fuck it. No, let's editorialize. Yeah. Enslaved person.
Yes.
With Saint Nick. He then developed into a black Moorish page from the south of Spain. He was given the name Black Pete because racist, unimaginative.
Yeah, the Dutch are then establishing a colony in South Africa. Yeah.
And he became kind of, as the story developed and was through various editions, he became more and more of a comedy character. He was a clown. He was basically the kind of the jester character. You know, he's allowed to do the things that Saint Nicholas can't do because he's good and saintly and pious. So his sort of kind of the venom to his Spider-Man. That out of all of the kind of like analogies to choose, that's the first one that came to my head.
Yeah.
But do you know what? They're both red and black.
Yep. Where does Carnage fit into this? Like, if we're gonna apply the symbiote metaphor to this, you know?
Maybe he's a naughty child.
Yeah, I don't know. I love the relief page illustration where it looks like just Santa is just throwing an apple at a child's head.
That was a celebration. It would happen on 23rd, I think, or the 6th. There was 2. So St. Nicholas's Day is the 6th.
Yeah.
And then there are also kind of like a reverse Halloween where people come to your door and throw sweets at you quite aggressively.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's just kind of like another excuse to do blackface.
More than likely.
Yeah.
It's like the Bloomsbury Group. It's just, you know, like everyone's blacking up.
Yeah. So Swati Pete becomes a comedy character. He becomes this clown, and his job is to punish the naughty children by putting them into his sack and taking them back to Spain to work on farms until they learnt to be good, and then they would be allowed to return to the Netherlands.
I'm resisting doing the accent.
I think I've got. Oh yeah, here we go. Here is an illustration of Pete. Again, you really see how.
Yeah, but it's interesting in the sense that like the depiction of Saint Nicholas, Father Christmas, whatever you want to call him, is like as the vestments and the visual representation of bishops changes because they don't represent him as a cardinal ever. It's like he's always in like bishop's vestments. Is maybe it's a relatability thing. They were doing, you know, brand analysis on Saint Nicholas.
Maybe, or it might be just that Saint Nicholas became a bishop.
Yeah.
And never got to cardinal. Yeah. And it's yeah, it could be. But also I think they do want him to be the kind of the friendly face of Christmas, and then you have the nasty, evil side of Christmas. Which is really unfair. Here's something fun.
Yeah.
As a little theory of mine. I think that Swati Pete could be interpreted as a version of Krampus.
Huh.
Traditionally, it was another illustration for you.
Oh, somehow is racist against multiple people.
Yeah. So traditionally,
only the Germans could do that.
Krampus was a black goat demon who was in chains.
Yeah. Freed
by Saint Nicholas.
Yeah.
And then would become Saint Nicholas's kind of assistant.
Yeah.
And do his bidding for him. And weirdly would also kind of be part of the like toy making elf myth as well. And he would again pick up naughty children and put him into his nice wicker basket.
Yeah.
Which is obviously a kind of a reference to plantation farming and the kind of picking and storing of things onto your back.
I find it interesting that like the depiction of Krampus is like it's also like the illustration, it's weirdly reminiscent of like Hieronymus Bosch. Like it's this kind of demonic but like also terrifying, and like there's a bit of the Minotaur in it. Like it's really racist. Like I'm just looking at it, like it reminds me so much of anti-Semitic illustrations that came out of Russia in the 1950s.
And I feel like Jan, which is also my cat's name, but I named Jan after Jan Vertonghen, one of the best Belgian footballers ever, not Dutch.
Fuck the Dutch.
At this point, yeah. So in the Sinterklaas and his servant, in heavy air quotations, you get a lot of the kind of typical Santa myths. You know, there's a bit where Santa Claus and Pete, I'm going to call him Pete now, stand on top of homes and they listen down through the chimneys to hear like which children are being good and which ones are being naughty. He keeps a book with everyone's names and he keeps a list of who's good, who's naughty, who's nice. He also asks his servant to prepare the presents for the children. Children leave their shoes by the by fireplaces. And he also leaves weirdly. He arrives in a steamboat and then he leaves in a hot air balloon.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, hot air balloons were kind of the hot new thing.
I think it was a kind of, I think it was just like, what's cool and what will kids like? I know, hot air balloon.
Like, you know, at this time, you know, the Dutch had Santa in a hot air balloon, and if you're bad, he makes you black, and Irish people were like starving to death and eating grass at the same time.
Yeah. It's great, isn't it?
Yeah, but this is super fascinating, and you're doing a fantastic job at like explaining the kind of development of it to me, because I've never really thought about it. But it's like, you know, there was obviously like the 90s thing of like more kids know about Santa than Jesus now, and it's like, but I think the formation of the identity of Santa outside of like the corporatization of it in the 20th century
Mm.
is almost the most long-standing cohesive like monomyth created in the West.
Absolutely. It's it predates Jesus. It's a kind of paraphrase John Lennon. Like, more famous than Jesus for sure. And it's kind of strange to me to have this kind of morality scare about it. It's like, but you built this as a morality scare. Like the whole point is to scare children into being good. So now you're worried that they're too concerned with being good? Or it's kind of
Santa's gone woke.
He's gone woke. Speaking of
woke Santa,
this is our second Civil War Santa. We had the English Civil War guy before. Now we go to the American Civil War. We have.
Oh, interesting.
Do you want to describe what you can?
Yeah, so this is I would assume a pencil illustration on the cover of Harper's Weekly from the US Civil War of Santa giving gifts to Union soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna lean into it's 1863, so this is kind of like peak American Civil War. Oh, it's Thomas Nast. Incredible.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Like if you're an illustrator and want like just incredible inspiration for like any type of marginalia you want to create, Thomas Nast is just incredible at it.
Beep, 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 beep. So yes, very well said. This illustration is by Thomas Nast, one of the kind of the greats of political cartoons. He was a bit of a boy wonder. He joined Harper's Weekly at just 18 in 1859. He flunked out of school but was really good at drawing.
That's just a sign you don't need to go to art school.
No, you just have to join a magazine at the age of 18 and be paid to do illustrations for it.
In 1863.
Yeah. I mean, you do have to live through like a horrific civil war. But, I mean, yeah, if you were an illustrator, you can kind of weigh it up. I would describe Nast's style as kind of extremely sentimental, very patriotic, and always political. There's always kind of hidden meanings, hidden signs and things. He's referred to by Lincoln and Roosevelt. Lincoln said he was our best recruiting sergeant, and Roosevelt said that he was the best teacher that America had. So he was a propagandist, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way.
Yeah.
Because obviously he was on the right side of that particular scuffle.
Well, like the thing with Thomas Nast is like he was like simultaneously both incredibly subtle and so surface level. Like his illustrations just in general like convey so much meaning on the surface, but obviously like the kind of little hidden things that he would put into them. But it's like he's so effective at conveying a message just in an image. This is kind of like this kind of moralistic and like in the strictest sense of the word, he is like an incredibly righteous illustrator, and you see that throughout his career. Like there's a very strong nationalistic, patriotic, moralistic messaging throughout his images. And like the different layers of meanings, like obviously like Santa's giving gifts to soldiers, but then there's like, the two young boys who are sitting in front of the carriage or behind him, depending on perspective, playing with a new toy, the American flag, which would have been a relatively recent thing as well, like waving in the background, and just the battlefield just off in the distance in the background of the illustration.
Yeah, there's also like some really quite adorable little touches in the background as well. I'm not sure if it's a battlefield or if it's just the kind of like the campground.
Yeah.
There's like a hog roast. There's like one of the pigs has escaped and they're all chasing the feral hogs.
Yeah. But it's interesting in that like this is a precursor to the monomyth of Santa becoming a worldwide phenomenon in the 20th century through the cultural domination of both the British Empire towards its tail end and the rise of like American cultural hegemony around the world.
Yeah,
I say that speaking to a Burmese person.
Yeah, I know. If we look at the actual like, you might not be able to. You definitely can't see because the iPad's gone off again. That is a note for myself to work out fix that. But I'm going to zoom in on the kind of representation of Santa himself. And if you look, he's kind of elf-like. He's very small. He's got this little pointy hat. He's got pointy ears, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit different to the kind of Coca-Cola Santa.
And it's also as well, like, it's there's a lot of ink that has been spilled about that, like, the US lacks a folkloric tradition that exists in kind of a metaphysical sense, like things that exist outside of reality, because the US, as its foundation, existed after the kind of the midpoint of the scientific age. So the kind of need for these kind of myths to explain reality.
That's so interesting.
It's and to this day, like, it is a very much a representative realism country, because their conceptualization of, you know, culture and concepts exists in very literal representations.
That is so interesting, because last episode I spoke to a friend of the show, Lily Kong, and we were talking about the history of graphics user interfaces, which involved talking a lot about, like, the early days of the California tech scene. And we kind of came to this conclusion that, like, this is American folklore. Yeah. This is the kind of legends and stories and fables, you know, these little anecdotes that just get told until over and over and over again. Yeah. These are the things that people kind of believe in. It's like this idea of technology will save us.
Yeah.
Great men can do great things, and that kind of thing. It's super interesting. So one thing to add is that Nast was Bavarian. So a lot of the kind of folklore elements in this image and in future images, I think, are from that heritage.
Yeah.
He's bringing his own kind of, not Sinterklaas, but like a version of that kind of Yuletide.
Yeah.
To his illustrations. In terms of politics, Nast is very interesting, because he was an abolitionist.
Yeah.
He supported civil rights. He hated the Ku Klux Klan and racism in general. He did lots of work about anti-Chinese racism in the US. But because he was a white guy in the 1800s, he hated Irish people so much.
I was about to say, because
that he still got cancelled.
I was about to say his depiction of Santa is very close to the depiction of Irish people in Punch cartoons.
That's going to become really interesting in a second.
Okay.
So there was like a NAST cartooning award, and they took his name off it in 2018 because they were like, sorry to the great nation of Ireland, we are sorry.
Look, my thing with being Irish, and I've said this on other shows and I will repeat it here, is that, like, being Irish in the world of racism is like showing up to the Paralympics with, like, dyslexia. It's like, yeah, you technically qualify, but you shouldn't really be there.
It's fucking great. So Nast illustrated Santa many times. I think up to 40 times for Harper's Weekly alone. His drawings were inspired by the Clement Clarke Moore poem. Santa's appearance was also based on Nast's own visit. Yeah. It's a self-portrait as well. And I think there's something interesting there of this kind of like what you were saying about like the kind of the stereotype of the kind of American Irish immigrant, those images, and also the fact that it is kind of just a reflection of Nast. And not to get too kind of like, I don't know, would it be Freudian or Jungian? I don't know. To sort of...
Does Santa want to sleep with his mother?
Does Santa have a mother?
There you go.
Oh no, he did. Remember? Because they died.
Yeah, oh yeah. Santa is just Urzat's Batman. We've created Batman from first principles who brings you gifts, and those gifts aren't massive hospital bills.
Do you want to read a little bit of the poem? Because it's just got a good description of Santa.
Down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot. All his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry, his cheeks like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up with like a bow, and his beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of his pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a jolly round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump and a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
So yes, I think a lot of the representations do come from this poem. It's jolly, jelly-filled belly, whatever that line was.
Yeah.
So sort of evocative. It does make you. It makes you think of Christmas pies, and
it's body positivity for Christmas.
Yeah, it makes sort of Ozempic Santa from the Puritan times even sadder.
Yeah,
because they really did strip away all of his jolliness.
Well, it's also like the rolling in of, you know, something like Saturnalia. It is like feasting, it's merriment in the depths of winter. It's kind of, we're seeing the coalescence of all of these like characteristics of both the time, nature, and the idea of Santa Claus all in one.
Absolutely. I'm just showing you now a photograph of Nast next to his Santa. There's similarities.
Yep.
And this becomes a bit of like a reoccurring theme where illustrators, particularly the sort of jolly male ones.
Why does he look like Joseph Stalin?
What?
He literally looks like Joseph Stalin.
Maybe it's because he's got good hair.
No, it's the eyes and the nose.
Oh, the illustration one.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes. But I think that's like a fatherly thing.
Oh, I'm just like, he looks so much like Stalin.
It reminds me a lot of those like Soviet postcards of Stalin with like children.
Yeah.
Where he's like smiling and joying. The kids are like, oh, we love you.
Santa's now canonically Georgian.
Oh shit. I don't want to wade into the whole sort of like Turkish Santa versus Georgian Santa versus
it's Turkish Santa versus everyone else.
Hey, Taylor's always I can say that because I'm part Armenian.
don't ask Santa about his opinions about the Kurds.
Santa versus the world. Okay, we have now reached what I think is the pinnacle of Santaness. This is the most Santa that you can be. This is Coca-Cola Santa.
Yep.
This Santa was drawn by illustrator Haddon Sundblom from Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to describe what you can see here?
Yeah, so this is it's like a watercolor, like very much kind of this, I assume this is 1930s kind of watercolor peak post Wall Street crash illustration. Representative realism, like it looks more like a real person, still has that kind of rotund, rosy cheeks, jolly, and is like, you know, still with the presence, like very much kind of in the vein of the previous Nast illustration that you showed me, but is stripped of like the iconography that is much more traditionalist in terms of like the holly, the presents. You know, it is a much more conservative representation of Santa in my mind.
Yeah, I think part of that is that this is an advert for Coke, and he's got this kind of very small glass of Coke.
Just because it still had the cocaine in it.
Back when Coke.
What do you think is in Santa's bag?
Oh my goodness. Just imagining Santa turning up to like office Christmas parties across London.
Oh God, you don't want to know about the North Pole Christmas party. HR is very, very busy on the 1st of January. At least they get a week off.
Yeah, you know. That's true. So yeah, you got most of it correct. Not that this is kind of an exam or something.
I love doing well on my podcast exam. It brings me great fulfillment.
You'll get a sticker afterwards. Actually, I do have a sticker for you afterwards.
Fantastic.
So these are actually oil paintings, but they've been sort of thinned down to get that kind of watery, kind of more fluid effect. There's like technically this is really quite a lovely painting.
Yeah, it's fantastic work. Like there's a beautiful kind of softness to it, which like I obviously is due to the medium that was used, but like I think it conveys this kind of convivial softness. It's welcoming. Obviously, the focal point is the glass of Coke, but if you were to like get very art critical about it, it like conveys this kind of like welcoming warmness. Obviously, he's like quite rosy. The clothes are red. But yeah, it's like it is, I suppose, the perfect representation of Santa for the purpose in which it was created.
Yes. Yeah. There's also the slogan. I think it says, "My hat's off to the pause that refreshes." There's this idea. It's really, illustrating a story. Santa's, busy delivering presents, and then he takes a pause. And what does he drink on that break?
Coca-Cola. Yeah.
Beep, 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 beep. So I'll tell you a little bit about the illustrator. So Haddon Hubbard Sonny Sundblom. He's born
very 1930s name.
Incredibly. I love the nickname Sonny. That's very cute. He's quite adorable. There's a bit of like a Dick Bruner quality to him where it's just like, oh, you're quite sweet. I probably will say that and then find out something horrific about him.
Dick Bruner, famously the inspiration for Santa.
So he's born in 1899. He was an American commercial artist of Swedish and Finnish descent. So again, he is coming from that European background. He's bringing those kind of Northern European traditions and sentiments around like the midwinter festivals. He worked in oil paints. So he was commissioned to paint a Christmas advert for Coca-Cola. He was also inspired by the Moore poem. And I think we can pretty safely assume that he saw Nas illustrations. And that was a big part of like informing the design of the character. He actually used his friend, and I've got like a full name for his friend. And I was like, why? Is this guy important? But it's just his neighbor, Lou Prentice, as like a live model for the original image. And I think that helps to bring some of that like there is a quality to drawings when you are drawing from life where you get to see the kind of the movement and the kind of the person occupying the body as well as the that is a kind of indirect suggestion to my students that they should draw from life. And then later, something happened to Lou Prentice, mysterious. It's not mentioned anymore. And then Sundblom just started painting himself using a mirror. The Coke ads debuted in 1931. And they've been used many, many times since. It's all still property of Coca-Cola, so they can use it forever. I don't want to think about like how much he should have been paid versus what he was paid. That might just make me quite sad. Over the years, people have gotten really weirdly attached to this rendition of Santa Claus. So like one of the years where Sundblom was using a mirror to paint his advert, a bunch of letters arrived at Coke HQ asking why Santa's belt was on backwards.
Oh, the neeks are out. The Santa nerds.
People have always been really weird about media.
Yeah.
And having kind of parasocial, I think it's the whole daddy thing again.
Yeah.
Of like, whoa, something's different about him. Can't have that. It's people like me who are like, tiny thing has changed in this room.
Yeah.
I'm going to need to comment on it.
Yeah.
And at the time, the way to do that would be not kind of, atting Coca-Cola, but just like writing a letter and sending it in the post. There's a lot more steps to complain about stuff. Thank you. Beep, beep, beep. Here you can... there's a couple of images of Sundblom himself. Again, what a jolly fellow. And quite a cool illustration of how they would block out a single oil painting into kind of billboard shape, poster shape, cut out elements and stuff. Super cool to see to me. Then this guy appears. Coca-Cola Santa gets their own Svarte Pete, but not.
Yeah, not racist.
No,
at least.
Like he's the whitest that he could be.
And is this the emergence or first emergence of Santa's elves?
I feel like there's always been this idea of Santa's assistants.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're elves, sometimes they're fairies, sometimes they're enslaved people.
As people, everyone has always been skeptical of Santa. It's like, he can't do all this stuff himself. Surely someone must help him.
Exactly. And whether that is naughty children who've been kidnapped and taken to Spain, or if it's this guy. This is Sprite. But it's not for Sprite.
Okay.
It's like a really sort of strange reversal of what you would expect. Sprite was a character designed to explain to people that it was okay to ask for Coke as well as saying Coca-Cola.
Okay.
So there's a load of really strange adverts with this little like white frosty character saying it's okay to ask for Coke.
Okay. Interesting.
I think so. He started in like kind of the Christmas period where they're really like pushing Coca-Cola. Obviously, Christmas adverts, huge. Always have been, always will be.
It's probably like they were trying to formalize something that was happening outside of their control. Like people were shortening it to Coke on their own.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, well, we're the Coca-Cola company, so we need to be in control of this.
Right. Exactly.
I think the term is retroactive branding.
Yes. So similar thing would be, maybe the only thing that's coming into my head right now is Crap and Thomas Crapper, the inventor of the flushing toilet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's the inventor, if he just popularized it. Bad example.
Yeah.
But I know exactly what you're talking about. We've reached the end. We've reached the most Santa that Santa could be.
Yeah.
I think we should return to the drawing that you did.
Yeah.
A while ago.
Jamaican Santa.
And I wonder if you have any thoughts about the things that you've included in your drawing and whether that has any kind of, can you see any connections between that and what we've talked about today?
100%. I can see the incorporation of like the suit and the hat. Mine is a bit more maybe limited by my technical ability and is it maybe just like happens to look a bit more like a bishop's hat. But yeah, the beard, the suit, like the hat is very much like informed by other people's designs.
I was thinking about because so many of the Santas have been kind of also self-portraits, I was trying to see if there was like any kind of self-reflection here. Maybe not.
Yeah, but see, I think this whole thing is fascinating because I am not obsessed, but like very curious about local interpretations of international objects. So it's like, what does Santa look like in Indonesia when combined with like local visual culture? What does Angolan Santa look like?
Probably sick.
Probably has an AK. But it's this thing of like, I think Santa is, I suppose, like the most popular modern monomyth that can be encountered all around the world, in big part due to Coca-Cola. But like, I can't really think of many other like cultural or physical objects that are represented all around the world. Well, maybe the AK-47 and the iPhone. It's like the trifecta of Santa, the iPhone, and the AK-47 are like things that are represented in every single culture, and you can show someone all three of those and they'll know what they are. Yeah,
I'm also like very kind of taken and interested in that idea. I used to have a Korean Jesus.
Yeah.
And I just loved it because it was Jesus, long hair, kind of a long face, the hand positions and everything, but it was also very Korean. It was like carved from a specific type of wood. I think it would have been teak or something. And this is one of the things that I really want to kind of hopefully get into the show as I get better at it and also just do more of it, is how the kind of the little symbols, the little like archetypes like develop and spread around the world, and how people change them, and kind of like, and also for how people use them. Like we saw a lot of propaganda. Like we obviously saw like the commercial stuff, but there was like Civil War Santa was obviously a piece of war propaganda. We had the sort of Protestant Catholic Santa pamphlet wars. We had the OG St. Nicholas and the kind of the beginnings of that kind of like spreading of Christianity. It's like yeah, it's all super interesting to me. And hopefully other people too. It's like an audience of one, and it's also me.
Yeah.
Um,
Korean Santa's bringing you bibimbap and hopefully a deferment for your draft into the army.
Yeah. All right. We've reached the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Talking with me and offering so much insight and knowledge, and it's very, very appreciated. And thank you for letting me use your studio as well.
You're always more than welcome.
Thank you. All right. That's it. That's the show. Bye.